What's up, everyone? This is EJK. This is going to be a very cool analysis on Maru, and this is going to be a video explaining his success behind the TvP matchup, where we see a lot of other Terrans not doing too well, but Maru somehow manages to pull it through. And his opponent in the top right corner is Stats. Stats is a very respectable Protoss player. He has very solid fundamentals. Just as I say that, he makes that mistake. But he has very solid fundamentals, and I like to think of him as Zest's weaker version. Stats was Zest before Zest got good. Stats is the prototype. So, talking about Maru's TvP, his TvP can be characterized by very, very powerful, well thought out timing attacks, and being able to choose the best spot on the map at the time to attack. Now that might seem a little bit broad and an abstract concept, but I will be pointing out more of what I mean by that as the game goes on. The first timing that we are going to be taking a look at is when Stim finishes. This is Maru's, this is his ID build, so everyone calls this the Maru build because he first showcased this a long time ago in a galaxy far away. And essentially, you get the second barracks, as we see on the production tab, really fast before your second factory, and then you get, I believe the SCV there was waiting for the mothership core to pop out, and it didn't pop out, so Maru decides to go back. But he does know there's a proxy on the map because there's only one pylon in Stats' base, and the delayed mothership core 2 also suggests that resources are being spent elsewhere. Anyways, what I was saying is, this is the this is the Maru build, where you get the barracks faster than the factory, and the factory just helps accelerate your tech production, and the fast barracks also allows you to get very fast stim out. In Korea, the TvP meta, as of recently, has been shifting towards very fast stim timings. Terran players do not like, for whatever reason, to delay their stim. Well, for good reason too, because stim allows you to be aggressive, and without stim, the Protoss player doesn't have to worry a lot about what you can do out on the map right away. So there's really two ways to play this matchup right now, and it's going for a fast stim, as we see here, or it's to go for a very defensive setup with siege tanks and medevacs and liberators, and delaying your stim and getting a faster third command center and trying to play the economics game. Maru does not like to do that. He likes to play a timing based game. So I believe his Reaper did scout the third base going down, so Maru has ID'd that Stats has gone for an Oracle and he's gone for a fast third. So he essentially knows what Stats is up to. There's not much that Stats can do to change his build at this point. What this information gives Maru is it's going to give him a set of attack motions that he's going to perform with his army as a specific response to scouting that third base. If Maru did not scout that third base, he would have been a lot more conservative with his army. He would have done different things with them. And his army, what really sets him apart from other Terrans is his army usage and being able to gauge whether he can take a good fight or whether he needs to back off and do something else. So he's very confident and knowing when he can attack and when he should not be attacking. So the stim timing, stim is about to hit in a little bit, stim is about to complete, and so far, if we just take a little pause at the game while the units tab is up, every single one of Maru's units is going out to attack to help the stim timing. So what Maru has essentially done is he has optimized the stim timing to create the strongest possible timing off of when his stim finishes, so that he can hit a powerful timing attack, and he can do stuff such as punish stats, so fast third base, or be defensive and being able to hold against all-ins theoretically. And Maru has a Liberator, and he has a Medevac and 2 Widow Mines, so this is going to set up very nicely for a 3-pronged attack. So although Stats is able to get a revelation off on a lot of Maru's army, great revelation, Maru is undeterred and he continuously walks across the map. You can see the look on his face. He's like, bro, why do you even try? You should just leave the game. So this very nice stim timing lining up, and Maru decides to do a Liberator timing as well, just trying to split Stats' attention and units apart as far as possible. And what ends up happening here is this medevac goes into the main base, and Stats is moving his entire army, his Mothership Core, all of his Stalkers, all of his Adepts, and his Sentry to deal with the 2 Widow Mines. He quickly moves the Mothership Core back into the third base, but his reaction is a bit late because of all the multitasking going on, and as a result, Stats ends up losing a significant chunk of workers and a lot of mining time as well. Now this could have been avoided by Stats. This was a mistake on his part, not being able to react as well as he should have, because he moved all of his units into the main base. I'll even go back and highlight it. He moved all of his units into the main base to deal with this medevac and 2 Widow Mines. And if you ask yourself, why is Stats doing this? What purpose does this serve? The answer is it's a mistake, and it's not something that Stats benefits by moving his entire army into the main base. And as a result, he isn't able to defend the front at his third base. If he had maybe the 5 Adepts and the Sentry there and popped a Guardian Shield, he wouldn't have taken so much damage. He would have been able to get the Photon overcharges up. And if his Mothership Core was in better position and able to react faster, there's no way that Maru would have been able to kill all of these workers and the 3 pylons, because pylons are not cheap. You kill 3 pylons, that's still 300 minerals that Stats loses. And he lost, he was trying to warp in units as well, so he loses gateway production time by having to rewarp those units in at a different location. Maru quickly realizes though that his Stats' arm. Actually, let me rephrase this to kind of give a better understanding of Maru's decision making here. So what ends up happening is Maru recognizes, from the Terran perspective, Maru recognizes what Stats is doing, that Stats is moving his entire army to defend this, or at least enough of his army so that at the third base there is not enough defense there. So Maru, knowing that Stats does not have enough defense at the third base, knows that if he engages in this area and uses a stim, he will take a cost-efficient trade. Now, how cost-efficient the trade is, it all depends on how Stats reacts. And Stats reacted sloppily, so Maru even extends a little bit further just to kill a couple probes, but as soon as the army comes back, he moves out of position and backs out, saving most of his army rather than sacking it. Because if Stats' army was there at the third base, Maru would not have done that move. Otherwise, he would have lost his entire army. So this is Maru's strengths really showing about how he's able to know exactly where he can take really good engagements and exactly when he needs to back off and retreat and when he no longer has that army advantage. Now, the next timing attack we see here, so that was the first timing attack that Maru did, It was a stim timing attack with 2 Widow Mines and a medevac and a Liberator. The second timing attack hits with +1 attack and combat shields finished, and Maru has 4 medevacs, so he ends up doing a Doom drop into the main base, and it took me a little bit to understand the decision making behind this, but essentially he does this drop because he wants to trade. This is under the assumption that Maru knows he's going to win the fight, or at least take a good engagement. So Maru trading this army on purpose rather than picking up. He's trading all of these units. He got the Oracle, he's getting a bunch of Stalkers. So what ends up happening here is all of the army is reset. Let me use my fancy pen tool. The entire army is reset. So, oh my gosh, that's too big. Does this work? Oh, it's transparent. Interesting. Okay, essentially, Maru has traded out armies, so his standing army is 3 medevacs, 2 marauders, and 7 marines. And as I'm saying that, that's a pathetic force. Stats, on the other hand, has about... He only has 3 gateways right now, so he has about 3 production rounds worth of gateway units. He has 10 gateway units. He has the Void Ray, he has the War Prism, Sanctuary, Mothership Core. So he doesn't really have a very large force either. So I initially thought that that was a mistake by Maru, but thinking about what resetting the army count does is essentially Stats wants to take a 4th base as soon as possible. That's what most Protoss players tend to do. They try to take a 4th base, and generally there's nothing you can do to stop it. What Maru did here was he stopped Stats from taking his 4th base, because if we take a look at the units again, we know that both players have very little standing armies, and Stats needs to have a bigger army before he's able to take a 4th base without overextending himself, because if he tries to take a 4th base right away, like right now, he's not, even though he has the money for it, he doesn't have the production, the gateway production, or the army behind it to be able to defend against any attacks that Maru will try to do. Because as a Terran player, you can use the medevacs and you can attack with 100% of your army in one spot very quickly. So unless the Protoss player has more than enough units to defend multiple locations, in which case Stats does not, Stats needs to keep his army in one location and all clumped up together, otherwise his army is just going to get picked apart, and so that's why he is not able to take a 4th base very fast, and that is why I think that Maru's engagement, while it did look very sloppy, was a very good trade for Maru because it delayed Stats' 4th base. And we see here Terran on 3 bases versus Protoss on 3 bases. It's not a good position for the Protoss player to be in. So after that attack and after trading out, Maru doesn't really have the production. He doesn't have 8 barracks to really replenish that bioforce, and he doesn't have enough Liberators or Widow Mines to support his army to be able to do any more aggression. So rightfully so, he is staying back and playing very defensively. In fact, he has no intention of moving out for the next about 2 minutes, because we see on the production tab Fusion Core and a 2nd starport on the way. So Maru's 3rd timing is going to be a Liberator range timing. Maru sticks very, very closely to his timings, so if he doesn't have a timing in mind already planned out, there's no reason, absolutely no reason to be out on the map. And Maru knows this. He knows that if he's out on the map, he could just get punished really hard by getting chased down by Blink Stalkers and Adepts. So as a result, he's just playing very safely and patiently as well, waiting for his Liberator range to finish before he moves out. Stats, on the other hand, he soon recognizes that Maru is kind of not playing very defensively. Maru does this push here, and I think this is a mistake, because if we ask ourselves what he's doing, what purpose he's accomplishing, really it's not much. It's essentially keeping Stats honest, I guess. so that Stats, if he tried to move out right now, this base trade would work in Maru's favor. But Stats has a lot of army left over, and all this defense, Maru isn't able to break. The Liberators aren't really doing anything either. There's just an overwhelming amount of adepts. So Maru was trying to do a two-pronged attack because he thought that because he was able to kind of lower Stats' army with the initial 4 medevac drop, he would be able to do a two-pronged attack and catch his Stats' army out of position, or him not splitting his army correctly to defend in 2 spots at once. Unfortunately, that didn't work as Maru had planned, and he's back on the defensive. But that's okay, because Liberator range is soon to finish. Stats has no intention of pushing out or trying to end the game. First of all, he doesn't have a Warp Prism to really reinforce his army. Second of all, he is getting a starport and a fleet beacon, so his goal is to stabilize on 4 bases and to start making that scary Protoss death ball and starting to build up a Tempest count so they can deal with the Liberators. Now, this little medevac attack here is very interesting by Maru, because essentially what happens is, so Maru was waiting for the Liberator range to finish, and he was also going to hit at around 2-2. As we see on the production tab, 2-2 is about to finish as well. And throughout this entire time where Maru was making Liberators, he didn't make a single additional medevac. So Maru dropping his medevacs in this area forces Stats. He pretty much expects this drop to be scouted, and Stats' response will be to position more units closer to this area to intercept the drops. So Maru moves, Stats sees it, Stats immediately starts to move his army into a more defensive position at the 4th base, and Maru is okay with that because it allows him to safely move the rest of his army across the map. I could totally be using the pen tool right now. It allows him to move his army across the map. Stats' army is over here trying to defend Maru's army over there, and allows the rest of Maru's army complete freedom for being able to move across the map, because the Protoss player, with all these disruptors and stalkers, that is a very excellent army to be able to slowly chip away at the Terran player before they're able to siege up in a favorable spot. But now Maru's already on Stats' side of the map, and so Stats isn't able to really do anything about this army, and Maru really smartly positions his Liberators in a way so that forces Stats to either commit to defending in this location or commit to defending in this location. By cutting off this whole area here, Stats essentially only has 2 areas he can go to, and, well, he still had only 2 areas he could go to before the Liberator sieged up, but going to one area or going to the other will force him out of position. So if Stats goes too far over here, Maru's just going to go over here. If Stats goes too far over here, Maru just goes over here. Now Stats does go a little bit too far back to his 3rd base, but mostly because he knows he cannot defend this base. He doesn't have the army. His first Tempest is now on the way, but 4 Disruptors is not going to do, and 14 Stalkers is not going to do anything against a Bio army that has 8 ranged Liberators for defense. So Maru is able to quickly take out that base, and now he's secured a 4th base of his own. At this point, he's in a fantastic position, and the reason for him to push here, the next timing that we see him do is a 200-200 food timing, essentially, where he is up a base. He's about to be up in 2 bases as well, because he's taking his 5th base, whereas Stats is taking his 4th base. So he's looking to trade armies. He's just regrouping here before he moves out to attack. But essentially, he's going to be attacking in the near future, and he's going to be wanting to just trade armies with Stats, because at this point of the game, Since Stats also took his third base very fast, the third base is going to mine out a lot faster for Stats than it is for Maru. Let's keep that in mind. And at this point, the main and natural bases for both players are about mined out. So Stats not having a fourth base right now means that his income is drying up very quickly. And although he might be able to max out initially, if he doesn't secure additional bases and additional income soon, he's not going to be able to replenish this very expensive army that he has right now. So Maru decides to push. He's regrouped with his army and now he's pushing. He makes a very, very fatal mistake though, and his Liberators are not sieged up. I guess there was something wrong with his hotkeys. I think if he was able to siege all of his Liberators up right now instead of having them kind of fly around and letting the rest of Maru's army die, he would have been able to take a much better fight. As a result, though, we see Maru, he's continuing to try to fight on, but as soon as he recognizes that he's going to start losing the fight and that he's starting to be pushed back, he immediately backs up. Now this is where things get interesting, because up until now, all of Maru's army movements and all of his attacks and timings, they were all planned out. But now, after this failed attack, both players are now going to go into a freestyle mode where they have to react on the spot and they don't have any practice in this kind of a situation, or if they do, it's very, very little. So Maru's on 5 bases, Stats is on 4 bases, taking a 5th base. This command center gets immediately evacuated, and what Maru does here is, and this echoes previously about what I was talking about, how Maru knows exactly where the best spot is to attack on the map and where he's going to get the most cost-efficient trades. If he stayed at home, he probably would have ended up dying. Stats would have been able to push into the 3rd base, or at least trade off disruptor shots for important army units. Not even trading energy, but just trading a spell. Can't believe disruptors don't have energy. We're trading a spell for money units. So Maru decides that he's not going to fight Stats' army straight up, and Stats' army also only has a lot. It's significantly made up of just Tempests and Disruptors, both units which are very, very poor and taking base trades. So Maru is very comfortable sending 5 medevacs, the majority of his army, across the map to sort of even up the game. So Stats doesn't have any defense, or he doesn't have enough defense here to defend his only mining base. Maru's last mining base is going down as well. But, oh, excuse me, had to yawn there. But, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so this base trade scenario, Maru is coming out a heavy favorite. This is very advantageous for him. Being able to kill 2 command centers, or 2 nexuses for 2 command centers is, I think, a very fair trade. And Stats essentially has 1 base mining left. Now this is an interesting decision by Maru to float the command center over to the gold base. And what's even more interesting about it is the reasoning behind why Maru ends up doing what he does. So he has this gold base. Stats doesn't know about it, but he should know about it, because as soon as he sees the command center being floated over from the main base, he's going to know that the other command center most likely went somewhere else. And so he revelations the units. So all of the SCVs are revelation. The medevacs are even revelation. So Maru ends up revealing this base to Stats, which might seem like a mistake, but after a little bit of thought, just analysis before doing this video, I had to rewatch this a couple times for it to make sense too. So essentially, as soon as Maru starts mining and the time that he starts getting disrupted by these 2 stalkers, he's able to get about 30 seconds of mining time from a fully saturated gold base. So what that means is, in a very low econ game, as we see, if we take a look at the mini-map, Stats has 1 mining base, Maru has 2 mining bases. So simple math kind of tells us that 2 bases is better than 1. Now, what's interesting is Maru knows that he's going to lose all these SCVs, and he's going to lose this base. This is essentially a dummy base. And Maru has basically said, hey, I'm going to let this base die. I don't care if you know that I'm taking it, but it's basically just a dummy magnet. He wants Stats to attack this base, and that's what Stats ends up doing. So instead of attacking the other base that Maru has, Stats ends up attacking just the gold base with his entire army. And Stats, again, he has 6 Disruptors and 5 Tempests in his army. And what that tells Maru is Stats cannot split up his army in 2 locations to attack. So even though Stats is getting rid of this gold base, Maru was able to get, I would say, about a total of 40 to 45 seconds of total mining time from that gold base. And not only that, he was able to start mining from an additional base as well. So although he's lost a base, if we take a look at the map, well, this fight's going on, but if we take a look at what Stats has going for him, Stats only has 1 base, whereas Maru only has 1 base. And in a situation where both players have only 1 base, mules definitely help to allow you to mine a lot faster rates from that said base. Although Maru does not have any mules going for him right now. Even though Stats has 68 probes, all of them are at 1 base, and having 30 extra probes at 1 base is not going to help you mine more. Having 2 bases, like what Maru did, gives him more mineral or resource efficiency. So Maru, again, he's going for the similar move that he did earlier on when Stats was attacking the 5th base. Maru knows he cannot defend this location, so instead of like bringing this army, that army was over here. Instead of bringing that army home and trying to defend, he brings it over here and does damage to Stats' only mining base. So Maru's essentially saying Stats can kill his base and he can stop his economy, but Maru's going to do the exact same thing. And so Maru has a very good location set up. The Liberator gets a couple shots off. Maru takes a couple good engagements or good cost-efficient trades there. That one Liberator was able to get a lot of damage done. And more importantly, he stopped Stats' mining for a very long time. So although Maru only has 17 SCVs, 17 SCVs is enough to saturate 1 base. So Maru still has a very good economy, even though the situation looks pretty poor. And because Stats had to take this base, Maru is now able to very easily deny mining time. He has this very, very good location, and there's nothing Stats can really do about it. This is kind of Maru's strengths coming in again, being able to pick these kinds of spots and choosing where the fights are going to happen in order to take very good trades. And even though he was in a very disadvantageous position, he's able to, now the game is very even, and he's about to kill Stats' last remaining base. It's dead now, and Stats is not able to kill Maru's last remaining base, so now it is 1 base to 0 base. Stats is forced into this big one last ditch effort. Maru has too much army left because bio units are very cheap, and GG is called. So hopefully this gives you viewers a little bit more understanding of how Maru makes his decision making, and kind of more understanding of what his game plan is and how he practices, so that if you want to play like Maru, you have a much better understanding, and you just have a better they're all so happy, but you'll have a better idea of how to play like Maru and how to emulate his style and his success in this matchup. The end.